On this day in 1914, the first successful non-direct blood transfusion was performed in Brussels. Successful. That one word really does speak volumes, doesn't it? This video is a brief history of the blood transfusion, a cause that is dear to my heart. Now, we have pretty much always known that blood was important. It's mentioned in the Bible. A passage in Leviticus says that you shouldn't eat blood from somebody else, which is why Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood transfusions today. I guess that if it's this specifically detailed in the Bible, it could suggest that even then they were trying to transfuse blood. And they would have been right to warn against it. We had no idea about different blood types or surgical hygiene back then, so it would have almost certainly meant death. The first recorded blood transfusion happened in 1492. Pope Innocent VIII was dying, so they tried to give him the blood of 3 10-year-old boys. Orally. How did it go? Oh, everybody died, and the physician was Jewish. This resulted in a whole bunch of anti-Semitism. So I guess you could say it went quite badly, actually. Now, we decided to sort of draw a line under it for a while after this, really, but then in 1628, William Harvey discovered intravenous circulation. So this was the idea that blood is pumped around your body through your veins. So people started experimenting with blood transfusions between animals. And between animals and people. Yeah. In June 1667, Dr. Jean-Baptiste Denis transfused the blood of a sheep into a 15-year-old boy. The boy did show signs of getting better, and then he died, probably because he'd got sheep's blood in him. The first successful blood transfusion between humans was performed in 1818 by Dr. James Blundell. The patient had suffered a postpartum hemorrhage, so her husband donated 4 ounces of blood arm to arm through a rubber tube. There was this little bulb in the middle of the tube, so they would squeeze it and it kept the blood flow moving through the tube between the two of them. Spurred on by this success, Dr. Blundell performed a further 10 transfusions, of which 5 were successful. He published his research and he invented various instruments to help facilitate in transfusions. Now, in 1901, Karl Landsteiner discovered that there were different blood types, and this was a game changer. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for this discovery, and we finally understood why people were dying when they were given a blood transfusion. Because people have antibodies to different blood types, so if you gave them the incorrect blood, then their body would just begin to attack it. But this discovery only solved half of the problem, you see, because there was no way to store blood to use it at a later date without it clotting. So this meant that you needed to have a suitable donor immediately available to give a transfusion, which was rarely practical. So researchers began experimenting with anticoagulants, so they are agents to stop the blood from clotting. Dr. James Braxton Hicks tried to use sodium phosphate. Sodium phosphate is found in baking powder, it's in processed cheese, it's used in the laxatives that they give you before you have a colonoscopy, and it's used as an anti-rust solution. It is great for loads of things. Unfortunately, it is not great if you put it into someone's blood, and a whole bunch of people died when they were transfused with it. In 1914, though, Dr. Albert Hustin found that sodium citrate was the less deadly option. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention, and in 1914, World War I kicked off big time. There were loads of people getting blown to pieces in really inconvenient locations for giving blood transfusions. So inconsiderate. On this day in 1914, Dr. Hustin performed the first non-direct human blood transfusion. In 1917, the first blood bank opened near the battlefields of France by Captain Oswald H. Robertson of the US Army Medical Corps. The world's first transfusion service was set up in 1936 in Barcelona by Dr. Frederic Duran Llorda at the start of the Spanish Civil War. In 1937, the UK and the USA set up blood banks ahead of the Second World War, and in 1946 the National Blood Transfusion Service was set up in the UK. At the time, there were around 270,000 donors, giving around 200,000 units of blood. Now, there are 900,000 donors giving 1.6 million units, and I am one of those people. I was asked by an American visitor to a blood donation centre why I was doing it if I wasn't getting paid for it, and I'll be honest with you, I'd never really considered that. It was just something that I'd always wanted to do since I was a kid. I guess it's because I figured that if I can give somebody something that I'm not using that will help them in a life or death situation, why wouldn't I? So, I mean, this video isn't intended to be preachy at all, and I appreciate there are so many reasons why you might not be able to, or why you might not want to give blood. That's fine. But if you can, do, because they split it up into different components, so each donation can save up to 3 lives. It's not that much out of your day. You get fed all of the crisps and biscuits and juice that you could desire, and you get to be a really smug bellend at parties. It's great. Thank you so much for watching. Why not subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.